with hundreds of people forced out of their homes and devastation, as you just saw across Texas. Rebuilding from that storm will have a big impact on the U.S. economy. Today, the White House will send an initial spending request to Congress. CBC's Aarti is on the story and joins me from Washington. Aarti, Washington is pledging federal aid in the billions for rebuilding efforts that will last years likely. What does that proposed package look like?
Well, this proposal that we're talking about from the White House to Congress for emergency assistance funding is expected very soon. And U.S. media reports suggest this first request could be for about $6 billion. And the breakdown would be $5.5 billion for the Disaster Relief Fund, which is run by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, and $450 million for the Small Business Administration's Disaster Loan Program. But Harvey may end up being the costliest storm in U.S. history. So the upcoming request to Congress for that $6 billion would just be the first of probably a few. Homeland Security Advisor Tom Bossert was at the White House press briefing yesterday, and he said there will likely be multiple requests for funding as they continue to assess the scope of the damage left behind by Harvey. So federal funding is top of mind for a lot of those Texas lawmakers. One is actually calling for $150 billion in federal aid. Now, that would surpass what was authorized for Hurricane Katrina recovery, Suhana.
And these numbers, they will likely change the Trump administration's fiscal plan, maybe completely. Does this mean the border wall will become perhaps a lower priority?
Well, that's a possibility for sure, Suhana. So this is the first urgent money needed to deal with one of the biggest natural disasters in U.S. history. But you're right. There's a long list of tasks that are waiting for Congress when they resume next week. So that includes several must-pass bills to avoid a government shutdown. There's a suggestion that lawmakers may combine emergency relief funds with a broader package that includes increasing the debt ceiling and a temporary federal budget for the next fiscal year. But that means tax reform and money for, like you said, the border wall will likely be pushed down the priority list. And that's despite the fact that the White House just yesterday announced the companies that will build prototypes for that wall. It was the Department of Homeland Security that awarded contracts to 4 companies that will build different examples of what the wall between the U.S. and Mexico should look like. Here's what U.S. Customs and Border Protection had to say about this project.
The prototypes are designed to be 30-foot long as well as up to 30 feet high. And they'll be in close proximity of each other, the 4 to 8 in the San Diego area. And then testing will look at things like the aesthetics of it, how penetrable they are, how resistant they are to tampering.
So all of these sample walls will be thoroughly evaluated, and then a final design selection is expected, and it will be the timeline about 60 days, 2 months. But again, funding would need to be approved. Some early estimates suggest this wall could cost $4 million. And with so many other fiscal priorities and plenty of opposition to the wall, it's likely to take a bit of a backseat. Aarti, CBC News, Washington.